the RSA zoning is different. It's just low density. Really
It's the buffer between, again, you have the commercial zoning, and then the low density, and then the single family. So
yeah, but isn't, but I thought, I mean, Debbie,
I think there's some limitation.
because it's abutting residential, I thought it had a 40-foot limit.
I don't know.
But it's abutting low density residential, not single family, so it's.
And we are very aware that that residential neighborhood to the east will impact any sort of proposal that we might have. Obviously, this is our initial proposal, and given the opportunity to speak with the public, we would absolutely.
When we met and talked a little bit about the site at school, we mentioned the alley and the fact that the power lines originate on the east end of the property, and that they could, it was in our opinion that you could cut them off and potentially vacate that alley, or alternatively run it either to the north or south, 6th Street or 6th Court, along the existing property if you had to, as an alternative to vacating it totally. And have you considered that in order to, that would take out of the sale?
Well, our initial design, you know, we did stay out, and everyone knows, you know, we weren't allowed to talk to city officials. But our initial design looked at really utilizing as much space as we possibly could, and we didn't want to do a design that went over the easement just to find out that that design is not going to work and not going to fly with this.
You could, rather than, it's relatively easy, from my experience, to relocate the easement, as long as you maintain access. You know, if you're bringing out to one street or the other in another way, that would allow you to have a single footprint, single office building that would maybe give you more efficient.
I would also let you know that we need to go to Mark, but it's like the second time I've heard that. The issue of not being able to talk to government officials, you kind of view that as a negative. I'm telling you, it gave you a free pass. It gave you a free pass to assume whatever you wanted to without having to double check it, and that was the only thing. So we would have expected you to check the other things. So the fact you couldn't talk to them shouldn't be a detriment to your ability to suggest and to present something to us.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
So, okay, Mark?
In listening to your presentation and then obviously reading it first, when you were presenting when you were going after the height limitation, the zoning, the 150 feet on the front parcel, I was very intrigued by that until I got to the very end and you decided to sell the pieces for residential use, because if somebody's going to buy those pieces for you for residential use on the east side of the property, you've in essence basically have limited your ability to develop that building to the maximum height that you were talking about, because I believe there's a 40-foot height restriction on the commercial building if it abuts residential. Seems to me that an interesting event when you said that you were going to sell it, when you were going to sell the property in the back to generate some profit on the backside. I thought, wow, maybe what I thought I was reading was had they just left the land there, maybe it's surface parking, alleviate your parking issue that you keep talking about because it's so expensive, and created some surface parking there. You might have even been able to explore looking at maintaining the height limitation, the height that you're talking about on your building, because you weren't technically abutting a residential structure. So when you threw the land in there at the end to sell it, I just thought you kind of just lopped off the top of your building, because anybody who bought that land from you for $850,000 was going to want to build something there,
Yep.
which would have hampered your ability to do what you wanted to do.
Tony?
I'll just wrap up. I'll repeat what I said.
Not to wrap up, I got
Yeah,
questions
plenty
too.
of time.
I'm sorry, what?
You're not wrapping up, I got questions too.
No, I was talking for me, but.
Oh, okay.
You want to go first?
No.
Oh. This is an exercise to help you develop yourself in these kind of presentations, because if you're going to stay in this business, and most times you're going to be in this position, where you're either begging the government for something, or you're begging somebody for money, or whatever. That's the world we live in. So we look at this as a learning curve, and we're not here to tell you all the wrong things you've done wrong and what you've done right. We know you worked hard to get here, and we just want you to know that we're going to be as fair as we can, but at the same time, we hope you come away from this with, positive new knowledge and so forth. What hasn't been mentioned, but mentioned before, the river is a boundary line. It really separates the two sectors. The downtown central business district is north of the river, and the ease of transportation and ease of getting there is not easy. So we see, we've said this collectively before, we see this as you're in a different market, sub-market than you are with the downtown business district. So comparisons, marketing comparisons and so forth, maybe really not on point. I mean, the idea that Las Olas and Broward and all that are part of this site and they would merge or mingle in some kind of relationship is pretty a stretch. I mean, you're so limited in southbound traffic, and of course going north as we kid around, the only way to walk directly is to walk through the tunnel, and that doesn't sound like a pretty good idea. Otherwise, you got to go all the way over to Southeast Third to over a bridge and so forth. So your sub-market is really the courthouse and other activities that are going on south of the river. So we thought you should have recognized that. In terms of the residential lot sales, the 850 is a weak number in my opinion. We probably get a lot more than that.
That was not on purpose. I prefer to be undercut.
Yeah, but
it'd be a lot.
That market is at a maturity point that it is what it is, and it's expensive.
Oh, it is.
And even in the last recession, it only had a hiccup. I mean, so any ability to build new housing in that section of Fort Lauderdale, people are going to jump all over. So anyway, that's all I have.
Couple of things. One is, in your numbers, you did not take into consideration soft costs, if I'm not mistaken. So financing costs, commissions, legal, the associated soft costs necessary to get the project completed. Is that right? Or did I?
Yeah, and we went back and forth on that. The construction cost we were originally given, team members didn't agree with that, was at 155. The building estimated to give a test at 120. That's why I threw in an extra $25 to try and build in some soft costs to that number. But that definitely wasn't fully taken into account. I also I put in, I think, $20 for TI work as well to try and take some of the leasing commission as well. But it wasn't fully integrated as much as it probably should have been.
Yeah, that was another point. And in both the written and the oral presentation, you talk about an historical average TI being, I think it was $12.90. And I would tell you, I'm not sure where that number comes from.
That's if it's from Reese.
Reese.
It's a combination of renewals and new.
Yeah, it's
Right.
I think some fact checking on that would be appropriate, because you're not going to get away with less than 35, 40 bucks a square foot from TI on a new construction office building. So you wouldn't have had enough money to accommodate it under those circumstances.
Are those numbers based on us integrating that work with our contractor rather than remobilizing to take care of the TI?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It would be more expensive to come in later and do it even. So, so the 1290 is clearly a mix. So I'm struggling to evaluate everything, because I know what you're suggesting, even though I kind of like it in some ways. I don't like the two buildings. I don't think you explored the vacation of the alleyway enough. And I like some of the things that you were saying about the office, but I know you can't do what you want to do because you didn't have enough money in there to do it. So I'm trying to just look at the process and grade the process, not the actual answer. The other thing I would tell you is that and Tony's right, this is designed not for us to be jerks up here and to be tough on you, not just for that, but to try to give you a real world experience of having to come back out and either you're in a position where you're presenting to a city or county council, or you're presenting to a conference room full of institutional investors, or whatever the circumstance, but a formal environment where you're coming and trying to explain your development and feasibility analysis and why we should do it. And effectively what you did in the oral presentation is you kind of regurgitated the written presentation. So while you were speaking as an example, you had an opportunity, you were talking about the fluffy stuff, the cool stuff, you know, Broward, the beaches and all this stuff, right? Could have an opportunity to show pictures of beaches. Could have an opportunity to show some things up here in your oral presentation. All of it, nearly everything I saw up here on your oral presentation was also in the written. So you didn't take advantage of the opportunity to come and sell us. So as an example, if we didn't really like the written, or we didn't read the written, here was your chance to sell us, and you were assuming that we liked your written. Right, so I think that was a mistake. I think you needed to modify your behavior on that one.
We have time for 2 questions?
I think so.
Plenty of time.
Yeah,
Okay,
good.
I have 2 questions, and it really relates to the demographic and the market analysis. And it's jumping off of what Eric just said about the materials. It was a little bit too much 30,000 feet for me, to be honest with you. So let's talk about, what do you really think? And let's talk market first. What kind of office user do you think would actually be attracted to this site? And why?
Good afternoon, morning. We were looking at users such as real estate professionals, accounting professionals, lawyers, so on and so forth, because the market in terms of the job employment that we researched, those were the type of individuals in this area who were occupying those office spaces.
That kind of summation is all that I needed to see up there. I saw too much. You lost me. It was just too much. It was too much. And the demographic profile. So who's moving to this part of Fort Lauderdale?
I've lived here my whole life, so what do you mean in
No,
reference to it?
who is,
Oh,
from
like
the
what type of young
demographic?
professionals are coming in from like all over?
Well, I
different-
asked the broad demographic question.
Okay, so
So
like,
the answer is,
I would think like international professionals, people that are coming in because their companies are relocating, and obviously they want to be close proximity to the things that are going on as far as the port's concerned, downtown's concerned, and it's really, at this point, it's really easy to get in and out of here as far as being able to target your market internationally and both domestically.
getting in and out of Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
What about getting in and out of the site?
Yeah, it's even, I mean, it's not a high rise, so you, I mean, it's literally, oh, you're talking about under the tunnel and going around and just that, I mean,
Make a left turn.
exactly.
Try to make a left turn.
We did talk about like actually
What you're gonna do is
opening
you're gonna go back to the neighborhood over to 7th Street.
I was about to say, you're
That's what you're gonna do.
When we
right
spoke
turn,
to
around.
when we spoke to Miller in class, he said that it was actually open at one time when it was a gas station, so I'm sure that would be something we can entertain again.
You're sure?
I think so. It's not a big
Speak to the
thing.
Rio Vista Homeowners Association.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. We
Right.
want you to have an opinion.
Yeah.
Well, it was there before,
We
so.
want you to stretch the envelope. We want you to look
Well,
outside the box,
Yeah,
you know? I
of
mean,
course.
it's not easy, but the natural thing is to just go where everybody goes. In other words, well, the first reaction is this is what you do. But the great projects and the great successes of the people say, no, that's not good enough.
That's right.
That's just good, but well, how do we get to make it great?
Right.
Okay, you know, there might be some far-fetched land use, but, so you know, it's okay to, as I always drive my people crazy whenever I say, where's the wow? Everybody's looking, when you have a wow in a presentation, you're probably 50% home to get the deal done. You know, so, and by the way, on the financials, you really have to show us the spreadsheets. You can't show us conclusion boxes. It doesn't work that way in the real world. I mean, because whoever's gonna get involved with you, of course, depending on the money side, in a couple of days, they're gonna know everything about this property. They're gonna get in the car, they're gonna drive the tunnel, they're gonna say, well, what are these people talking about here and everything? And also, they're gonna drill down and they're gonna go get their own market research, and they're gonna back up everything. They're not gonna believe everything you say. So the point is, one of the things that you understand, when you go to an equity fund or you go to a bank, the thing that makes them most comfortable in the book is the spreadsheet. They want to see how this all happens. Where does the flow in? And of course, if you're borrowing, if you're lending the money, what you want to see is, well, wait a minute. Oh, here's where my money comes back to me.
That's right.
And here's where it's happening.
Sources and uses.
You know, so you have to show them the mechanics of that. So I know you did it to get to those numbers. So,
And to, just to piggyback, I mean, that's the purpose of having three components to this assignment: written, oral, and then the Q&A. So you know, the written was your opportunity to give us the very complicated in-depth spreadsheet that I'd have to get the magnifying glass out to look at. Here is the opportunity to sell, and the Q&A is to prove what you know.
On the numbers, two observations, and this is again part of the recurring thing of thinking. Think gross when you're thinking numbers and you're presenting them, whether you're showing them in a sources and uses statement or you're showing them in a cash flow statement. Two observations on your pro forma. One is there's no operating expenses on the building cash flow. Okay, so you're collecting rent, you're collecting CAM rent, and then some property manager has to pay the electric bill and has to pay the property tax bill and has to pay for janitorial services, right? You have to net that out and coming into your net cash flow, your net operating income. So it's important to show that as part of the detail. Number two, you're using a 5% vacancy rate, okay, which you explained to us up here what the vacancy rates were in the market, and then you use the 5% vacancy rate, so you can't really.
That was based off of calling local brokers in the area, along with the pre-leasing done at One House Solis. That was, I think, 95% pre-leased before it was finished construction. So that's where the 5% came from. We felt confident that we can capture the market and use that kind of low vacancy rate.
So you use one building.
The most recent building that
Which was a build-to-suit for a single
it
tenant.
was build-to-suit.
Okay, so the chances of them taking the whole building are pretty good, right?
That was literally not definitely.
Okay. So.
Yeah, no, I knew it was a build-to-suit building, and that was definitely probably one of the things that pushed on the pro forma was the vacancy rate. I thought I was pretty conservative on everything else, but I needed to.
I think there's one market in the United States that's a 5% vacancy rate. It's either Washington, D.C. or it's Silicon Valley. There's not a lot of places you just, so don't be afraid to use the information that you generate out for the market. You showed us the REE's vacancies of anywhere from, I don't know what they were, 13 to 17%. Yeah. Okay, it's a new building, we're an A building, we're a small building, we're a boutique building. Maybe you can argue 7 to 10. Okay. Okay, but 5% vacancy is from an investment perspective, from a financing perspective, I'm gonna open up my book and say, okay, I can't give you all that money, I'm gonna throw a 10% number in. Okay. That's gonna give you a little bit more comfort there.
Yeah, and following up on the numbers a little, you know, I saw you had 162 square feet of parking space. How did you come up with that?
That was I think it was 9 by 18 was the standard spot size. I think the code for one of the other things is 8 by 12, so we're just overestimating, you know, to have enough room, rather than over.
Well, usually when people calculate like per square foot per parking space, they're talking about, they add the drive aisles and everything. So I mean, you know, the best I've ever seen is like 300. So, you know, you're reporting it like half of like the best. You know,
I think we left like 4,000 square feet per floor for that as well. I didn't include that in the per parking spot.
Just when people cite it, and,
yeah.
You know, just let me know. Then on the costs, yeah, I mean, I didn't see site work costs. Eric pointed out soft costs and leasing commissions. And so, yeah, we worked really hard. Tenant improvements are probably half of what they need to be. Okay. You know, so I think, you know, something that might have alerted you when you were looking at this, if something wasn't adding up right, your return on cost is 40%, and your IRR is like 15. So your return on cost is basically like a cap rate. It's your income, your stabilized income stream over your total cost. So that shouldn't be higher than your IRR ever. You know, I mean, well, you know, if the project's not working, the IRR should be 0. But you know, if it's working out right, you know, a 40 return on cost, you know, that should be a red flag to you that there's something going wrong here in the numbers. And just for the future. I didn't see a lot of backup on the residential, the land sale. I just kind of saw you kicked the number.
I found 2 comps that sold recently, in the last 6 months. There was very limited land sale comps, and I think they were trading at $47.51 per square foot. I think one lot was 6,000 square feet, and one was at 3,500 square feet. So that's kind of where I got the number out for the land cost, for the vacant land sale. And as I think Tony said, it was very low. I was trying to be conservative on that estimate, more than be aggressive.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is the real deal.
Right around 16 in Washington, whole different world. Claudius.
Very nice. We're just trying to help you.
Your smiling face for a photograph.
Hey, Tracy? Yes.
Vicky, nice job on that.
Alright.
Aren't you guys glad? Aren't you guys glad you passed all this?
How are you? What was that? I'm gonna try it today.
No, I won't. We can help them with that.
Why are you taking your time? Have a drink for
We did in class. No, well, we guys, it's still
Is it the same information as what?
Yeah, it's sent in the package. Sorry.
Follow the rules.
I read that package very well.
These chairs, you kind of, you sit for so long, excuse me, I'm just gonna. Oh, by the way.
They were
She's a trend. I suggested to her, actually, this is going to be really good from May 20th. The announcement was is doing presentations, studies of the WMR speakers coming to talk about what they're doing. I'm moderating the retreat, so I put it on our calendar. As soon as it comes out, I'll shoot it to you. Make sure you can. I think it's going to be a repetitive, the Miami office we're hosting a virtual event.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I figured I should.
Oh, I just sat back and let her go. I just let her go. Just let her go. I mean, it was just remarkable.
I've always heard how it works out there.
Yeah, and she's been emailing, and I've been trying to get stuff on her. Well, it's unfortunate, because I had a huge amount of that was a 7-hour hearing, and she would have adored. She would have sat there with her, and then we won, you know, and it's real. So I told her the next day, and I start another project, and I try to bring her to the
kickoff, so that you can see how involved we can take it up the whole process. And if there's always some of those public hearings, I'll let you know.
Okay, no, that would be great. Would love it.
Yeah, because I think those allow, I wasn't able to teach in Peter's class. Every Thursday, I felt terrible. But I want to know,
Right.
if you used to see before I did, tell them, please let me know next time, whatever.
Then Tracy's gonna be back teaching this course in the fall. There's gonna be a switch off. He's gonna do the evenings and she's gonna do the Saturdays.
So, I mean, whatever, so, let me know.
I most likely do. Exactly. And that's what's also interesting is like the fact that.
I saw such a slide too.
I'll move, but like, how do you know where, when to issue?
Then I see your match. Yes, I'll hold it.
Okay.
I'm going to.
And just have it sit. You know, it's,
Yeah.
okay, but just, I'll be one. Yeah. Are you sure?
Oh, you did? Yeah. Oh, yeah? Yeah.
She has a hard.
We didn't speak.
Before you start sweating.
Thank you. All right. I got a good product. Thank you so much.
Okay. Really? It is the new river.
It used to be the New. Now
They spell it N-I-E-W.
Well, we're going with the historic route.
Perfect,
Yeah.
New. There's Tarpon Bend, there's a lot of Tarpons.
A lot of bends. A lot of bends in the river, a lot of bends.
All right, if you guys are ready.
We're ready for you.
Go for it.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Rebecca Steinhaus.
I'm Brandon Noodleman.
I'm Erica Williams.
Mariana Pimentel.
I'm Chadwick Maxey.
Quincy Smith.
We're going to present to you the Tarpon shops and offices. First, we have a little video to give you a little overview, as well as the flyer we handed out to give you an overview of the building. That's the building of the Tarpon shops and offices. Now we're going to go through the property development and the finances. Go to view. Full screen.
drafted the property development plan and the finances. Our first step was to analyze the site. So we know that the site is 1.31 acres. We know that it's on the corner of Southeast 6th Court, Southeast 6th Street. We know it fronts Federal, and we know that it's in Fort Lauderdale. What we didn't know, and then we found out, was that right steps behind it is residential. This residential has an average income of $111,000. So that means that these people are willing to go shopping, go to these offices, maybe they're professionals, they want a new office, and it's right steps down from their house, like you can see. Not only is that one of the things we found, but then we also found that even though the site isn't like right in Los Olas, there's a lot of amenities to get you downtown, to get you to the other amenities. There's, in the area, you have the Broward Convention Center, you have all these buses, you have the airport, which is a major airport. So there's a trolley stop that's like about 3 blocks west of where the site is, so people can go, they're done with their work, they go on the trolley, brings them to Los Olas, you go out, after work, you get free drinks, you're happy. You can even, like if it's the weekend, you take that trolley and it brings you down to the airport, you go to New York, have a great weekend, you come back, there's your work. Again, it'll take you to the beach, it'll take you anywhere.
Okay, now on to zoning. As far as you guys have heard, the property is 1.31 acres. It's split zoning between commercial and residential. The commercial share is about 30,000 square feet. The residential is sitting at about 27,000. So far, it's pretty unique having the site be split zoning like this. The setback, our building is prominently on the commercial side. We don't have any structure on the residential side. The setbacks for the commercial side were 5 feet besides the residential side that's adjacent. That is a 15-foot setback. In the commercial section of the property, there's a lot of leniency as far as the buildable area. There's no floor area ratio requirement, and there's also is no height requirement on that. Parking is pretty much the biggest issue with this project. We did a lot of changes to try to figure out exactly how much parking we could fit in that. The building is 33,000 square feet. It gives us 1 spot per every 250 square feet, which gives us a total of 132 spots. We will be having 97 spots in the rear of the development and 35 in the front. We're going to be able to do this parking because of the non-conforming parking ordinance of Fort Lauderdale. They allow you to keep the parking that's there now, which is technically on this building right now. There's parking on the residential sector of this lot. Now it's on to Erica with marketing.
Okay, I'm going to go over the metropolitan overview. The population for this exact zip code is around 15,875, and the average income is about 106,000. Again, that's for this zip code. Some industries that are supported within this market are software, or technology, manufacturing, finance. There's also, as Rebecca discussed, various public transportation. There's 2 major railways, trolleys, water taxis, as well as some up-and-coming projects with the expansion of the Port Everglades, as well as Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. Excuse me. And the new FP&L headquarters. The employment rate in Broward County has shown a decrease. Last year there was 27,000 jobs. And also the payrolls are expected to grow by 2% and expand through 16,000 jobs this year. Okay, some of the competing submarkets are Plantation, Pembroke Pines, and Oakland Park. Within those 27,000 jobs I just referenced, 11,700 alone were within the professional and business services sector, which is good for us. The highest absorption rate, however, were in Class A properties in Southwest Broward. There is, however, an increase in vacancy within Fort Lauderdale. However, they did close the last quarter at 17.1%. Some of the absorption rates, 342,000 square feet and change out of 13 million. And the comparable properties, I looked at comparable properties within the vicinity of the site, and the average rent ranges from around $19 per square foot to $30. However, the vacancy rates are about from 5% to 41%. And our target audience are degree professionals, business support services, as well as, law firms, doctor's office, and so on. I'm going to turn it over to Marianella for the retail.
Good morning, everyone. After analyzing some of the office aspects, we're gonna look into the retail component. One of the strengths of this site is a great location. It's highly traffic, over probably roughly 54,000 cars passing by every day. And also it's a very cluster for retail, so it's well known for retail already. The space or the retail space that we want to build will be located on the ground level with 14,000 square footage rentable space. Our main target are young professionals, lawyers, and especially the residences from the Rio Vista area. In regards to the absorption rate, so far that shows strong retail fundamental in the last quarter of 2015. The trends indicate an increase in the absorption rate. If we look at to our inventory right now, it shows that we want to capture at least 2% of that net absorption. Right now, because of the demand of low inventory and new spaces, we have over 400,000 square footage and only 50,000 so far are completed. The trends also for the vacancy are positive, are showing that they are decreasing from 7.8 on 2014 to 6.5 on 2015. In regards to the rental rate, we look at the average of 20 on the low and $40 per square footage on the high. When we analyze our comps, we notice that along all the Federal Howard corridor, we have a lot of C class retails. They, most of them are located more on the south. There are new constructions, that will be probably, but in order to get more comparables for the type of product we wanted to build, we have to get out of the area. We went to Davie, Oakland Park, where we saw some Class A buildings, and with the occupancy rate between 95 to 100%. In regards to our cap rates, in the past years we evaluated the cap rate. They are decreasing. So especially on nationally and in the Broward County. Right now we believe that we're gonna be on the top 25% for the market rate or the market cap rate, and just specifically because of the new location and because of the new constructions. We're expected to be at 6.6% on the office and 5.5% on the retail space. Because we're going to hold the property for 2 years, we expect the same or a similar cap rate until we sell the building. So I'm going to turn over to Rebecca. Okay, so as for the development design aspect, I knew that we needed to fit at least 130 spots per zoning. So I put 35 in the front and then 100 diagonal in the back. A, you could fit more. B, the way the traffic lanes can be smaller. And since there was such a high traffic, we added the waves on the side. That way it's not just disturbing the residents and it's easy access. The building again is 33,000 square feet, 14,000 per floor. And it has 9 retail spots on the bottom and about 7 office spaces on top. So the concept that we went with was your average, simple, aesthetically pleasing, Spanish Mediterranean style. That way the tenants can like customize it if they needed to. So like you saw in the video I thought was necessary to show a little more detail, because these pictures I don't think do it justice. You couldn't see the elevator in these pictures, which you saw, even though the video lagged a little, sorry about that. You saw the elevator, which you can't see in these pictures, and as you can see, there's the 9 retail shops on the bottom, front glass doors, and there's doors in the back for access if you're parking or for employees. At the top, there's the stairs and the elevator, so you can go up the stairs to go to the office spaces. I put in higher end, I put in like a Starbucks or a boutique, because we're going for a higher end type of retail, especially since that residential is back there. We also put the landscape in the back to create a buffer between the retail and the site. That way it's not disturbing too much of the retail. And so that's the end.
Okay, now the financial analysis. We put together a development budget. Miller provided a price per square foot, but we just try to add in everything we could to get the most accurate cost we could. We started with the acquisition cost, which was the building, land, and closing cost, which was at $5.3 million. The construction cost, Miller provided $140 per square foot. We put in a 3% contingency on that. Next, we go to our soft cost, our professional fees. These were taken as percentages from our construction costs. The next is project financing fees and costs, which those totaled $429,000. And then we have the miscellaneous, which is our taxes, our builder's insurance. That was at $88,000. And the leasing and marketing, which was $527,000. This gave us a total development cost of about $12.2 million. Now on to financials with Chadwick.
So for the build out and the timeline of what we're looking for, we're looking at a 2-year hold. And so the first year is an entire construction build out. We expect to be finished with the architects in the first 3 months. Expect to start with the general contractors, with the shell and core starting in March and completing with the CO date in December. Critical to our success of holding this and selling it in 2 years will be leasing. And that's why we have such a large marketing and leasing budget of $500,000. Additionally, we're going to provide, we're going to start leasing out in June, so 6 months in advance. And lastly, we're going to provide a 6-month rent abatement in order to lock in these tenants as soon as possible. The final TI build-outs will be between October and December. And then we get into the leasing velocity in year 2. In year 2, we have both the office and retail. We think that our pre-leasing is going to start us out with at least 40% of the office, which is 3 spaces, and or excuse me, 4 spaces filled, and then retail at 60%, which would be at least 4 spaces filled as well. So as you can see, our aggressive marketing, we're expecting to be 100% by July. And we can continue to provide rent abatements and incentives beyond July, but they won't be the 6 months, because all the rent abatements, in order to make this sale happen, need to be complete by November. So we expect we should be complete by July with 100%. That's including the 5% vacancy.
Good morning. For general assumptions and financing, I'll cover from left to right, starting with general assumptions. All of the research and construction price data was what we used from Miller Construction. Rentable office space, as stated, 28, and retail at 30. As far as the financing, we're financing at 65% loan to cost. $4.4 million does not include the purchase price of the land. So our vision is that the land is a part of the deal, or the project is a part of the purchase price, not the financing cost. So 4 points, 30 years amortization, and our DSCR coverage kind of along those same lines, it being at the 33rd year stabilization hold over 2.19. Cash flows. Just want to highlight in the interest of time, that the total stabilized value at the current market rate, with cap rates and the market data that we had, was at $13 million. So I'll be followed by Mr. Maxson.
So in closing, we're making a proposal here, specifically to Miller Construction, in order to exceed your value that you currently speculate at $5 million. We'd like to do a fee development deal where we collect 3% development costs and work with the team in order to create a $12.8 million, and this is after closing cost, value for the actual land with improvements on it. So what that looks like is that we would use the partner with Miller. We would only borrow $4 million in order to pay for the development costs. And then we would ask for a $2.4 million cash equity investment up front for a total capital stack of a little over $7 million. And what that allows us to do is it doesn't require us to pay for the land because Miller already owns the land. And so at that point, once we sell at $12.8 million 2 years later on a non-speculative NOI cash producing product with the cap rates that are currently at, we're left with, after debt payment, $8.6 million back to Miller Construction. You take back your $2.4 million investment, that's a $6.1 million profit proceeds that you have. And that is over the asking price of $5 million that you currently have. If you're willing to go in with us for a 2-year hold, we're going to create value of $1.1 million over your current speculative asking price. And this is, again, a NOI producing cash flow building that we'll be able to sell on the market. If you look at it just from strictly a cash perspective without the land of what you're putting in of $2.4 million, it's a 3.27 multiple on your cash over a 2-year return. And even if we did include the land, just to show you that it does still work, it's still positive, it's a 1.13 cash multiple, even if we're counting the land and even if we have to borrow an additional up to $7 million to purchase the land. And so our development yield is 11%. So in closing, I would love to work with Miller. We provide the development expertise. We'd love to work with you to create value from a speculative $5 million and create a $12.8 million net sales cost property in which you would have proceeds after getting all your invested money of $6.1 million. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Debbie, you want to start?
Sure. You've raised an interesting question on that parking area. And it's kind of an interesting way to deal with the neighborhood issues, and appreciate that. But did you check whether with the non-conforming use status, and non-conforming use is kind of a lit, like kind of word, did anyone check to see what happens if you can keep that non-conforming use given your development proposal?
You can keep because of how much square feet we're adding. I think it's about a 60% increase in development. You can keep the status that it is right now because we're not building any development on the residential section. So when we read over the ordinance, it required that we if we build over 60%, we could keep that non-conforming use parking.
Good answer. And let me just ask one more quick one. The parking on Federal, and I guess Rebecca, you were focusing on that. You showed 90-degree parking.
On the back side.
Well, you had angled parking, and then on the front.
The
you
front
had
is,
the-
yeah, 90
degree
degrees,
parking.
yes, back for
So, were you expecting that cars would be able to go in both directions, coming in and out of there?
only in the front. So in the front, there is enough room for to go to the back, but in the back, since it's
I'm
angled.
only concerned about
Okay,
the
yeah,
front,
yeah, in the front, they can turn in.
on those 6 and 6.
Yes.
No, sorry. They can only turn in over there and exit out of the other side. They
Okay.
cannot come in through that side. There's a one entrance way over there.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a drive-by on that side as well to bring you to the back.
Okay.
For confirming that.
There's not enough room for 2 lanes.
No, yeah, I think
Yeah, there's
it's
no room
like
for 2
8
lanes.
feet, I think, yeah.
We have this, the
But
match.
you probably end up having to do angled parking in frontage also, because your drive aisle needs to be significantly wider than you're showing it,
Mhm.
just eyeballing it, just,
Yeah.
Minor details.
yeah. I'm just changing the parking.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions. One, what is your cost of the development excluding land? What's your total cost excluding land?
The total cost is gonna be the 12.7 minus the $5 million, so it's 6.7, or 7.7.
7.7 million. So, and by the way, I thought it was very creative to ask for Miller Construction to be a joint venture partner with you. So I think that makes, that's a good story to try to do that. And I think that's it was a very creative way to try to augment the land value. So I thought that was really good. So, 7.7, so then you're borrowing, what are you borrowing then?
4.4.
You're borrowing 4.4 of the 7.7, so you're only paying off $4.5 million.
That's the debt payoff there.
Okay.
So it greatly
Okay.
reduces the cost that we have to borrow, which then increases our cash multiple at the end.
Okay. I would hope, now you may not be able to, did you talk into any banks? Did you talk to banks about the possibility of this loan, or do any of you work for a bank?
We just looked at the rates, the interest rates. We asked them about interest rates. We didn't actually ask them about whether we could do a project loan.
So putting the land in as equity, that's skin in the game.
Yes, sir.
You put a value of $5 million.
Correct.
So if you walked into a bank and you said, look, I want a loan of 4.4, and in a project that I'm going to have $7.5 million in. Well, what is your $7.5 million? Well, I'm going to put 2 point something cash, and I'm going to put a $5 million piece of land.
Correct.
That's basically what you're saying.
Correct.
Bank's going to say, well, how do I know this land is worth $5 million?
I would assume they would get the appraisals.
No, they're not going to take your word for it.
Right. We would have to appraise the land at $5 million.
Okay. So you should have, maybe you should have pointed that out, that assuming that the land appraises at $5 million, this is the structure we would go with.
Did you track any sales for that? Do you have that?
We don't.
I mean, in that point, you would have needed comps and a whole bunch of things. Okay, I mean, to make that work. Okay.
As an aside, and I don't know if you can do it today so much, but at least a few years ago, if you actually got an assessment or an appraisal of $5 million for the land, you probably wouldn't need to borrow anything for the project. You probably borrow the full 6.7, 6.8 million, which would make your numbers look even better, by the way. And, so
Yeah, because if they agreed that it was worth $5 million on a loan-to-value ratio,
Right.
you'd only be looking for a little over
You're good.
50%.
Yeah, right, your loan to cost of you. Very low.
Okay.
I have a question about your timeline, your building timeline. I just want to understand, you're talking about build it, they will come. Is that kind of the
Well, we had a very aggressive leasing, pre-leasing, starting 6 months out. So before the building's even finished, before they could even walk, we're already doing pre-leasing. And, the idea is that we spent a lot of money on marketing, we spent a lot of money on leasing, and we provide incentives of 6 months rent abatement, which is significant for this market, and it would be significant for, these type of tenants that want to be in a location And so we're saying we're gonna market our location, which the marketing team has explained, is next to the CBD. It's right on Federal Highway amongst retail clusters. So we're really just taking what we already know to be a good location and marketing it and providing incentives to get people in.
I didn't understand that from that timeline. I saw the timeline as pre-leasing occurring after you had begun construction.
No, so the way the timeline was supposed to be is year one was on top and year two was on bottom. So the pre-leasing was occurring during year one starting in June all the way until CO when the building's complete. And then in year two, the leasing, that was what we were expecting our leasing velocity to be here. So if you see on year one, the pre-leasing starts occurring while the construction's still happening. It's going from red to amber. And you have the tenant improvement build-outs in October, November, December for those pre-leased tenants. And then we continue to provide those incentives all the way until June in order to try to continue to lease up the entire building before the end of the year. And we're only talking 9 retail spaces and 7 office spaces. So 9 retail spaces, as she said, was 2% of the entire absorption that happened, and the 7 office is 4% of the entire absorption that was absorbed in this submarket.
Before we go any further, I'm going to just repeat what we said to the other teams. This is a drill that we hope is a learning curve for you. We feel that, we know that if you're going to stay in real estate and you're going to all become leaders of our industry, which I have all the confidence in the world that you will, this is going to be an everyday part of your life. You're going to either be begging for zoning, or you're going to be begging for money, or you're going to be begging for something. And when you go into a room to get that, I can tell you from many experiences, you only get one shot. So your presentation almost always has to be perfect. So any criticisms here are meant to make you better. Okay? Along those lines, not to pick on anybody, but Rebecca, there's no I in the word team. Your whole presentation about the design was led by I did this and I did that.
Oh, I didn't.
Okay, I know you didn't mean it that way, but it's just something to keep in mind. You're in up there with as a we, and because you're all in it together. Okay. I need to really talk about the retail uses. You didn't really clarify, at least I didn't see it. Who would be the retailers in here, and for what purpose?
Well, we talk about putting like small, like high-end, like shop, like coffee places, like nail salon, and a boutique. I just try to put samples of like a higher end type of retail. So I mean, I put a Starbucks, but it could be any kind of coffee shop where someone wants to like do work or whatever. You have a little boutique. There was like a little salon. Where for our audience is professionals, young professionals, and the residents behind us who make money. So we want them to come in, like, when they're just, like, at home, they could go and, like, just need to get out of the house, they can go walk to the coffee shop, do some work if they have to, go shopping, get their hair done. If they're upstairs, if they're professionals upstairs, they can come downstairs for lunch, they could go get their nails done at lunch, they could, I mean, if we could put, like, a little sports shop. We're trying to cater to the residents, the professionals, people in the area.
How did you take into account, or did you take into account, the very limitation ingress bridge to this property? I mean, no one's going to come south on Federal Highway, make a U-turn to go to your retail. That would be, I think, it would be a push. And as far as northbound, once they literally get off Federal Highway to get onto this property, they're trapped. I mean, to get out of here and get back to go northbound, you got to drive back to 7th and up the highway. So, in the kind of uses you're talking about, where you have a lot of in and out traffic, to make Starbucks work, you need a lot of people. I mean, to make these kind of facilities. I don't know if you really thought through how difficult it would be to get a very smooth operating retail operation with the constraints of this land and its geography. And the other thing that we have mentioned this morning, we really don't see this property geographically connected to the downtown of Fort Lauderdale. We believe that the river is a great barrier. People just aren't gonna, look at this property as part of the urban core of downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's probably related to the courthouse and, and everything south of that. So, I think you have a hard push convincing a lender that retail is really very viable here. I think you would have to do a much better selling job than what you presented here, in my opinion.
Well, the courthouse is one of our audiences. The lawyers, they could be lawyers in the offices, and they'll go right there to the courthouse, come right over, and then they could go downstairs.
But is there enough critical mass of customers?
And how far is the courthouse? I mean, we live in South Florida, it's pretty hot. I mean, most people, the rule of thumb is people won't walk more than 2,000 feet. And in South Florida, it's probably more like 1,500, maybe 1,000 feet. So the courthouse is a little bit away. I think, to his point on the retail mix, the mix that you're mentioning, there are a lot of convenience uses that you would find in like a neighborhood shopping center. And you have the neighborhood here, so that would seem adequate, but I think the access really is a challenge. I mean, Valentino's has sort of pioneered the area, but that's a destination restaurant. I mean, people fly in to go there, and people drive from all over to go there. So I think you really want to focus on destination retail rather than convenience retail. You're not going to have a nail salon there. You're not going to have the coffee guy there. He's, there's one right down the street, but.
The best Starbucks in Broward County, South.
But we did think of that. I personally thought you could never have enough Starbucks, and I will do anything to go to a Starbucks.
The Starbucks is on the north side of the river, and as one of you mentioned.
No, there's one on the
Yeah,
side.
the side. When I
No, there's a
came here
Dunkin'
today, I
Donuts on the
noticed.
side.
I saw it.
Don't start with me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying.
I know my Rebecca and I know our Starbucks.
That's why I'm saying it doesn't have to be Starbucks. It could be like personal. I live in a West Palm City place. I've been going down to random coffee shops just to do work. I know a lot of people are starting to work more from home. So the people that are in that area need to get out. That you get homesick. You need to get out of your house, especially the residents behind there. If they're making that much money, sometimes they work from home. So they can walk to that coffee shop, pull up their Wi-Fi. They'll get to know their baristas. They'll get coffee. It's supposed to be family oriented. You just walk there.
Would you consider all office?
I mean, we did think about that.
Have you thought about creating a space as flex space so that the ground floor could go either way, office or retail?
That's a good point, yes.
Yeah.
Because the parking ratio is the same for both, that's the
Yeah.
beauty of the
Yeah.
downtown.
So, I mean, that could differ on the leasing.
On the
if
pre-leasing.
we, on the pre-leasing, if we notice people are picking it up and it's getting there, we'll go more for the retail. If we notice that people aren't really wanting to have a retail shop there, if the Starbucks is like, no, you know what, never mind that, there's Starbucks on the street. Then we'll say, okay, well, we could probably, Chad, could we do half, retail on the bottom and then half
The
office?
construction costs are the same.
Yeah.
We divided it up, 14,000, but realistically, the rents are also very similar, 28 versus 30. So you could easily substitute an office user on the first floor.
Yeah.
Although to that point, you didn't include TIs for your retail.
I did not, that's
Yeah,
correct. So
yeah,
there is a cost that, of doing that.
Right.
And I just want to mention, Kyle, nail salons are a destination.
And also with the nail salon, once you get,
It doesn't matter.
and once you get your person, that is where you go. So this is not only on the retail, this is even goes to the
I just
customer.
meant the public shopping center tenant.
Yeah, I know, this goes more to the customer service
Yeah.
spectrum. If these retail tenants know that they have the best customer service and they know people will travel anywhere to come there, they'll go there. But if they're like, I don't think this is gonna actually work, they're like, all right, never mind. But some retail places know they have really good customer service, they know they're good to their customers, they know that people will live. I travel all the way to Wellington to get my nails done, and it's 20 minutes because I need to go to my girl.
Can I ask you a quick question? And on the TIs in the retail, we're missing, I didn't see a site work cost either, so that's something that, is pretty important. And then let's talk about the office rents. What comps did you use? I saw there was a lot of market level information, but where did you come up with $28?
For the retail?
For the
office.
For the office.
Oh, I'm sorry. I took the average of the comparables that I was using to compare that. So I literally just took the average.
There are several office buildings along South Federal Highway that are in that range. And we would definitely be on the high end, without a doubt, but we're also a newer space.
Yeah,
We're a little bit closer to the CBD.
Yeah, a lot of the properties are aged. I believe the oldest one, I believe, is 1975. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you gotta be really careful taking averages, just something when you're doing a market survey. You know, something we talked about with the other teams, the downtown Fort Lauderdale office market's really broken into 3 pieces. I mean, there's Las Olas, there's Broward, and then there's south of the river, and they're really separate markets.
Okay.
So on Las Olas today, rents are anywhere between 28 and 35. On Broward, they're anywhere from 19 to 25. And south of the river, it's kind of all over the board. I haven't seen anybody do a triple net deal north of 26 south of the river. So for $28 triple net today, you could get into a building on Las Olas. So you know, you just need to be careful about looking at averages and you know, and think of who your user is. Now maybe here, because maybe you have lawyers who want to walk to the courthouse, maybe they're willing to pay a little bit of a premium. It's a far walk. There are a lot of other options out there. And you're probably not dealing with corporate users because of the plate you have. So you know, just when you're really digging into the market analysis, you got to chop it up into as many segments as you can and build little competitive sets against who you're competing against, rather than just looking at an average.
I will say our comp sets were all south of the river. We did not look at anything north of the river.
So and be careful you weren't looking at gross too.
Yeah, the comps don't always come out as clean as you end up presenting them.
Well, I mean, based on what you know right now, and based on our conversation, let's just say the retail didn't really pan out when you second drilled it. Do you have a B plan in mind? Do you think something else could be tried?
Office on the downstairs.
Office is downstairs.
The whole office?
All.
Yeah, a real estate office.
And by the way, on the design, I'm sorry, the right-of-way, or the alley, as Debbie calls it, we didn't accommodate for that through your parking lot and through your building. What do you think was gonna happen to the right-of-way?
The easement?
Yeah.
The FPNL that's going through.
Yeah.
That's going through. Well, I'm assuming that would go in the construction cost. We have to pay for a bore to go through our property. I mean, the FPNL only provides it for this building and the building over there. So FPNL would have to go underground, and we have that alleyway where if they had to bore in between the alleyway and our site, they could.
I left that walkway, like the walkway is where the alleyway is.
It's never gonna happen.
You're not gonna happen.
You're gonna reroute FPL lines and.
Their line ends right on the property.
Your buddy suggestion is the area in front of the elevators and behind your stairway, you would have to chop that up to get to whatever you want.
No, but I think what Chad's saying is that it stops right there.
Yeah, it stops right there. So
Right.
we'll have it end. We'll have it end FPNL and their pole over there at the residential sector.
Right.
At the residential, it will go down underground to our property. It won't have to go into our actual project. It can go into halfway to the parking lot.
In your timeline, what are you anticipating for the entitlement process?
Entitlement process, probably about a year, 8 months.
And that's built into that timeline?
8 months to a year.
Because it doesn't start till January.
Right, January 17th.
Okay.
Couple things, and again, to reiterate what Tony said, when we're critical, the only point is to make sure that we're trying to make it better, not trying to be jerks. But, I mean, there's a couple things. One is, and this is a compliment, you were very confident in your presentation, your style, and persuasive on what you think made sense. So that's good. The practical part, okay, the counter to that is saying it so, don't make it so. So it's certainly easy to say that you're going to stop all amenities or benefits to the tenants. You're going to stop the 6 months free rent, early, so that by the time you said, we're gonna sell it at that point, so we're not gonna have any free rent left after that. I'm gonna tell you, that's not up to you, that'll be up to the tenant, so that's the practical answer. But you approached it correctly, because you about had me convinced, even though I know it won't happen that way, you had me convinced, so that's a good thing. That was, as Tony said, you only got one shot at it, so it's good to present a very confident style, bordering on overconfident. So, don't be, there is a tipping point to that, so just be aware of that. The slides, as we said, you get one shot at presentation, and the purpose of the structure of this event is to provide you a written, an oral, and then a Q&A. So the written is when you can dump all of the information that you want to and hope that we read it. And if you were doing institutional investors as an example, then typically that analyst sitting over in the corner with piles and piles of books, they're the ones that are going to read it. So they're going to need to take a look at it. It's got to be interesting, it's got to be captivating, but it has to have all the key information to it. Then when you come out and do the presentation, now you're talking to the boss. And the boss is only going to give you 10 minutes, and you got to get their attention quickly. Your slides are way too busy. You got way too much information on them. That didn't do it. That's not going to do it. So when you create the presentation like this, don't just put the book in there. This slide actually is a much better slide, and shows it when you're talking about the leasing velocity. That drives your point home. But the financials didn't. You can't even read it. And by the way, even in the book, it's too small, too far apart. It's very hard to read that. So just constructive criticism.
And we need spreadsheets.
Yeah, actually, your financial spreadsheets were better than the other presentations, in my opinion. They were more complete. I think you're way too light on your costs, but everybody was. But at least you hit all the costs. At least you hit all the categories and you did them. So I thought that was good. But the presentation style of those spreadsheets and of that information was lacking, in my opinion.
Love the video.
Yes, video was good. Yeah.
Video was a great way to kick off and capture us, and actually, and I'm a very visual thinker, not the numbers person here, obviously, but it really helped me understand what you were trying to achieve better than when I read through the book.
People love pictures. Well, it creates something real in their mind of what you're talking about.
The one criticism about let me go back to the rental rate for a second. In your book, you had a graded chart in here on the plan and projects that are either under construction or planned, which are, most of them in here are pretty good comps, I thought, from stuff that's actually under construction. But you didn't mention those and reference those in your presentation, because that's what you would have zeroed in on. If you're a tenant looking for a space, where are you going to go? You're either going to look at some existing, or you can look at under new construction to get your space the way you want it to be, right? And you had a great chart in here, stuff in here, page 20. You mentioned a couple of them, but you talked about the rate in general sense. You had already done the work, and you drilled down and had delivered the answer. So kind of just referencing what you've already done into the presentation would have made your answer very simple.
I'm just trying to compress information, so.
Sometimes you don't
Yes.
need all of the information. Sometimes the 3 or 4 that you have in here are really going to point you in the right direction.
Okay.
You gotta go what you got.
Yes, I do.
I read your bio.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say, the financial analysis I thought was really strong. I mean, compared to everybody, it almost looked like a performer we'd see at the office. I mean, it's very detailed. You had the right return metrics on there. I think that was a great start, and the concept I think was a great concept too. You have flexibility between the 2 uses. You're not spending the money to build structured parking, and you did a great job presenting the JV. I mean, those were all 3 good strategic choices. I think you're in a good position.
I will tell you though that if if Harley's actually considering entering into a joint venture with you, that your development fee is way too cheap.
And your legal fees are low, really low.
Well, incredibly low.
Yeah, incredibly, add a couple more zeros, guys.
You don't get Debbie in the afternoon.
You know the expression, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Yeah. Somebody would say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They're making money somewhere here on me that I'm not aware of. But usually, you would want to promote. You didn't ask for a promote.
Well, the issue was that we weren't putting in any equity, and so.
Well, you put sweat equity in.
That's true.
And if
You
there's
put a lot of
excess,
sweat.
and if there's excess funds at the end, that'd be your promote. I mean,
That's what you're in the business of doing.
Well, I think one of the last things is we felt the methodology, even if the costs were a little out of line, the methodology of doing the joint venture, doing the flex spaces, was, whether or not the numbers are exact at the end of the day, it's going to produce value and increase value into the site. So that was.
Plus to promote the fact that, we'd be subordinate the land, the loan, and
Yeah.
providing equity, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how many
you're asking a lot of money.
Which is why we didn't do the promote.
That's good, that's a good point. But you're still too cheap, honestly, because at the end, in all fairness, you asked for about $210,000, I think, for your development fee, and you're gonna work for 2 years on this, and that's the only money you're gonna get. You don't pay the bills with that, so.
This is our
Unless
first
there was a
project.
promote.
That's why you would need the promote.
Yeah.
And to Tony's point.
It seems when he's talking to a contractor about fees, he's got a total.
Touche.
That's true, that's a good point, good point. Anyway, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The video is actually much smoother on my computer.